Hello, good evening, class. Am I audible to everyone? Just give a thumbs up in the chat so that I know I'm audible.
Good evening.
Good evening,
You
good
are
evening. Thank you. Okay, let's start the class. In the last class, we talked about ANDA and what is the module structure for submitting an ANDA applications and everything related to it. Today, we will be discussing about patent and exclusivity in ANDA. Okay. So when we talk about patent, what is a patent? Patent is a legal protection which grants the inventor exclusive rights to make sure that he is the sole person in charge of making, using, or selling an invention for next 20 years. Okay, so patent is what it is, your legal protection. Okay, and there are exclusivities related to those patent which we will be talking about in this class. So let's start. Why patent is important in ANDA? So ANDA process allows, we all know that ANDA process allows generic drug manufacturers to seek FDA approval in order to market a generic version of previously approved reference listed drug. So because there is a previously approved reference listed drug, we need to make sure that before applying for an ANDA application, the patent for that reference listed drug is either expired or about to expire or has expired. Okay, so before we file an ANDA application, we need to make sure that we are not we're not challenging the manufacturer of the reference listed drug which is in the orange book, that we will submit the application even though your patent is not expired. So that can cause a lot of legal actions. So in order to prevent that, we need to make sure that the patent is about to expire, has expired, or will expire in a certain amount of time, right? So ANDA process allows generic manufacturers to seek FDA approval to market a generic version of previously approved reference listed drug, and patent protections and regulatory exclusivities granted to the original brand name drug significantly impact the timing of the generic entry. Okay, so this is a brief of what why patent and exclusivities are important when we talk about ANDA applications. To everyone, is the screen visible to everyone? I think there was some lag because of which it hung up. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the patent considerations in the ANDA. So, when we talk about patent considerations, we should know what type of drug patents that are being granted before we talk about patent considerations. So, there are basically four type of drug patents that are granted to a manufacturer or a marketing authorization holder of a new drug molecule. They are active ingredient patents, which is composition of the matter. Then there is a patent for the formulation or the dosage form. Say, when we talk about active ingredient, your active ingredient patent can be for paracetamol. Okay. When we talk about formulation or dosage form, it can be for your paracetamol tablets. Tablets here is your dosage form. So everything, every aspect of that drug can be patented. Okay. So active ingredient gets a patent, formulation or dosage form gets a patent. Then even the manufacturing process involved in the production of that API and the dosage form also gets a patent, so that nobody else or any other manufacturing unit cannot, duplicate that process and manufacture their own drug. So first is your API patent, then is your formulation or dosage form patent, and third one is your manufacturing process. Apart from that, even the method of use of that drug product is patented, so that another manufacturer cannot claim that yes, our medicine is also meant for same route of administration or method of use, right? So four patents we've talked about. The first one is your active ingredient patent. Second is your formulation or dosage form. Third one is your manufacturing process patent, and lastly your method of use. So these are four types of patent that are being granted to the drug product. Okay. Then comes your FDA Orange Book, which is officially titled as Approved Drug Product with Therapeutic Equivalence Evaluation. It lists all the FDA approved drugs and their associated patent and exclusivities. So every drug that has received a patent, you'll find information regarding the drug and the patent in the Orange Book of FDA. Okay. So all the ANDA applicants must refer to that Orange Book when preparing their applications, so that they have an idea if the patent is about to expire or has expired, or there's a huge gap before the patent gets expired. In that case, they cannot file an application that would only cause legal routes and legal actions to be taken against the manufacturer who's trying to file the ANDA application, right? So, two things. First are your drug patents. There are four type of drug patents: active ingredient, formulation, manufacturing process, and method of use. Then is your FDA Orange Book, which list all the FDA approved drugs and their associated patents and exclusivities. We'll talk about what exclusivities are as we move on. And why is FDA Orange Book important when you are talking about ANDAs? It's important because all the ANDA applicants must refer to the Orange Book when preparing their applications to have a better idea of what the patent status is, right? So, coming back to patent considerations in ANDA, when a brand name drug is approved, the manufacturer lists its patent in the FDA's Orange Book, like I told you. So, the generic applicant submitting an ANDA must certify how their product relates to these patents using one of four patent certification options. The four type of patents that we talked about and the type of patent certification, both of them are different. Okay, we previously talked about what kind of um, product or what kind of dosage, where can we get a patent from, and here we are talking about the type of patent certification, means when and where we can apply uh, these four types of patent. Okay. So coming back, generic applicants submitting an ANDA must certify how their product relates to these patents using one of the four patent certification options, which range from paragraph 1 to paragraph 4. Okay, a paragraph 4 certification is where the generic applicant claims the patent is invalid. We're talking about generic applicant. Okay, so the generic applicant claims that the patent is either invalid, unenforceable, or not infringed. When the generic applicants claim these points, it often leads to patent litigation, because if the brand name manufacturer sues within 45 days, a 30-month stay is imposed on FDA approval unless the court rules in the favor of generic applicant. What this means is, take for example, there's two parties, A and B. A is the brand name holder or the branded drug manufacturer, and the B is your generic applicant. Okay, so if the patent for branded drug hasn't expired and the generic applicant claims that the patent is invalid or unenforceable or not infringed and submits the ANDA application, then it leads to patent litigation. They'll be seen in courts, there'll be arguments, there'll be fights over if the patent is invalid or expired, etc. And if the brand name, if the entire litigation favors brand name manufacturer, then they can sue the generic applicants within 45 days of them applying for the ANDA. And if the proposition is uh, if the proposition is in favor of the brand name manufacturer, then they can sue within 45 days, which leads to a 30-month stay on the generic applicant. Okay, so for the next 30 months, they cannot file an ANDA application unless the court rules in favor of the generic applicant. I hope that is clear to everyone what a paragraph 4 certification is. Okay, so in case generic applicant wins, the FDA provides early approval to the ANDA applicant to manufacture or produce their generic drug. But if the brand name applicant sues them, then there is no scope for the next 30 months, right? Apart from paragraph 4 certification, there are also paragraph 1, 2, and 3. In paragraph 1, paragraph 1 certification is used when when there are no patent listed for a specific API or drug product, and if you file an ANDA application, you get an immediate approval from FDA after reviewing. Then is your paragraph 2 certification. So that is used or filed when all patents of the reference listed drug has expired, and in that case also you get immediate approval from the FDA after reviewing of your application. And the last one is your paragraph 3, where you have to agree to wait until the patent expires before you file an ANDA application. Okay? The most common is the paragraph 4 certification, where the generic applicant claims that no, the patent is invalid and we would like to file an ANDA. Okay, this is very complicated and causes a lot of delays in getting ANDA approvals. Thus, the generic drug comes very late in the market. Okay, so if we are not sure if the patent is invalid and unenforceable, we need to submit applications under paragraph 1, 2, 3. But this is not done because in case generic applicant is filing a paragraph 4 certification and gets an approval, then it favors him. He is the first one to file the ANDA application and gets the exclusivity of 180 days, in which no other generic manufacturer can file another ANDA application, and that gives it an edge to manufacture and market that drug in the market, and gets faster. Basically it's fast tracked as compared to other generic manufacturers, right? That's why all the generic applicants go about paragraph 4 instead of 1, 2, 3, because if a patent is not listed, all the generic manufacturers will think "Ki, let's go through this route," and there will be a lot of competition, which will make it difficult for a generic drug to be approved in the market. The same goes with paragraph 2. And paragraph 3 is, of course, you have to wait until the patent expires. But in paragraph 4, you can claim that yes, a brand manufacturer's patent has already expired and we want to manufacture our own drug under ANDA application. So that is about patent considerations in ANDA. Now let's talk about exclusivity considerations in ANDA. Like I told you, 180-day exclusivity is granted, but before we talk about 180-day exclusivity, let's talk about what exclusivity is, and what are the type of exclusivity that is granted. Okay, so it refers to a period during which the FDA restricts the approval of competing generic products to incentivize the pharmaceutical innovation and generic drug development. During the exclusivity period, the FDA restricts all the generic products competitors to in order to incentivize pharmaceutical innovation, so that there is more pharmaceutical innovation. We have more innovative drugs, and as well as generic drug development. Then brand name drugs receive three types of exclusivity. The first one is your NCE, second is your new clinical investigation, third is your orphan drug, and there can be a pediatric exclusivity as well. So, NCE grants 4 years of protection for new active ingredients. New clinical investigation provides 3 years of significant 3 years for significant new clinical studies. For orphan drug, it can last up to 7 years for rare disease, and pediatric exclusivity at 6 months to the to already existing protections. Okay, so there are four types of exclusivity that's granted to new drugs or clinical trials or orphan drugs, NCE, clinical, orphan, and pediatric. Okay, so these are all the exclusivity granted to new chemical entity or clinical trials or clinical investigations, etc. But when we talk about generic drug exclusivity, it can also um, okay, not just new drugs, but generic drugs also get exclusivity, although it's for shorter period of time, but they also do get the exclusivities. So the first generic manufacturer to submit a paragraph 4 certification, like I told you, if you're submitting paragraph 4 certification, you are challenging the already patent holding manufacturer. So the first generic manufacturer to submit a paragraph 4 certification may be eligible for 180 day of market exclusivity, preventing other generics from being approved during this period. Apart from this, there is a competitive generic therapy exclusivity, which also grants 180 days to a generic company if the brand name drugs lack approved generics. If the branded drug does not have any approved generics, then a 180-day exclusivity can be granted to the competitive gene therapy exclusivity can be granted to that generic company. Okay. So two things, first to file and CGT. If you are the first to file manufacturer, you get a 180-day exclusivity period. And if your brand name drug hasn't have any generics approved, then your generic company can get CGT also for 180 days. Right? So, generic drug exclusivity basically begins when the generic first launches commercially or when there is a court decision of non-infringement or invalidity, whichever is earlier. Okay, during this period, FDA cannot approve other ANDAs for the same drug. Okay, so if you have first launched your generic commercially, or if the court decides that yes, the paragraph 4 certification is valid and that the patent holder has the patent of the holder has expired, in that case, 180-day exclusivity is granted, and during this period, FDA cannot approve another drug for the same drug. Okay. Moving on to the interactions of patent and exclusivities. So, if a brand name drug has both patent protection and exclusivity, a generic manufacturer must wait for both to expire. An ongoing paragraph 4 litigation, including the 30-month stay, can further delay approval even after exclusivity ends. And the first paragraph 4 filers 180-day exclusivity also impacts the approval timeline for subsequent generics. Okay, so what we're talking about here is that if a brand name drug has both patent protection and exclusivity, the generic manufacturer needs to wait until both of them expire. And if there is an ongoing paragraph 4 litigation, including the 30-month stay, then it can further delay approval even after the exclusivity ends. Okay. Yeah. And the first paragraph 4 filers also impacts the approval timeline of other generic molecules. Okay. So, yes, patent protection period is considered, exclusivity period is considered, and a potential 30-month stay is considered. Um, See, if there's a litigation going and if the generic drug manufacturer gets a potential 30-month stay, and in that 30-month stay, the brand name patent and exclusivity expires, then in that case, other generic manufacturers can submit their ANDA applications for the approval of the generic drug molecule or drug product, right? So we need to make sure that we stay as far away as possible from a 30-month stay. Okay. So this is the conclusion of what patent and exclusivity is. After this, we will talk about a case study which will explain this better. So, patent and exclusivity considerations are key in determining whether a generic drug can enter the market. Of course, without patent, you cannot enter the market. Generic companies must strategically navigate patent challenges, orange book listings, exclusivity periods to gain early market entry, while brand name companies use these protections to extend their market monopoly. Understanding these factors is crucial for both generic and brand name pharmaceutical companies to make informed decisions about drug development, market entry, and intellectual property strategy. Okay? So we need to make sure that we are aware of patent expiries, the type of patent certifications, the type of exclusivity granted when we are talking about patent and exclusivity. Okay, so moving on, this is just a CTD format in ANDA for your revision. A quick question. Can you all tell me what are the four modules that we need to submit when we are talking about ANDA? There's this one module that is not submitted. If you can just mention that in chat box. The one module that does not require any data to be submitted. It's just a revision from your last class. Let's see how many of you remember what module does not get in the CTD format for ANDA application. Anybody? Okay, module 4 is the answer. Anyway, moving forward to a case study of generic Lipitor. Once we cover this case study, we will also talk about Hatch-Waxman Act and how it impacts your patent and exclusivities. So, when we talk about generic Lipitor, so the brand name is, as you can see, it is called Lipitor. The generic manufacturers are Ranbaxy and Teva, and the brand manufacturer is Pfizer. FDA approval was granted in 2011, and the market impact caused a reduction in price by 80%. So let's talk about it in detail. So the approval of atorvastatin calcium. Atorvastatin is your API and the brand name drug is your Lipitor, right? So this presentation will delve into the approval of generic atorvastatin calcium, a generic version of Lipitor, providing a case study on the dynamics of generic drug approvals. We will explore patent challenges, regulatory exclusivities, and market impacts that shape competition in pharmaceutical industry. The goal is to illustrate the intricacies and effects of the Hatch-Waxman Act through a real-world example and to equip ourselves with a comprehensive understanding of generic drug approval process. Okay, so let's start. So Lipitor was developed by Pfizer and first approved by the FDA in 1996 as a cholesterol-lowering medication belonging to the statin classes of drugs. Okay, see, from here you can see it got approval in 1996. So as per patent approvals, patent expires in 20 years, right? So the widespread use of Lipitor and high revenue generation attracted multiple generic manufacturers to enter the market upon patent expiration. And Lipitor was one of the best-selling drugs in history. Now we have a lot of best-selling drugs, but in that era, Lipitor was one of the best-selling drugs in history. So, multiple generic manufacturers aim to produce and market generic versions of Lipitor to compete in the pharmaceutical market. This influx of generic competition significantly altered the pharmaceutical landscape, impacting drug pricing and patient access. So, generic drugs like atorvastatin provide more affordable treatment options for patients. So, what happened next? Pfizer listed multiple patents in the FDA's Orange Book for Lipitor, including a compound patent that expired in 2010. When we talk about a compound patent, it talks about formulation and process patents along with API patent and dosage form or process or method of use. So there are a lot of patents that were uh, listed for Lipitor by Pfizer. which that expired in 2010, as well as formulation and process patents that extended protection beyond 2010. Okay, so the generic manufacturers, including Ranbaxy Laboratories, filed ANDA with a paragraph 4 certification challenging Pfizer's patent, leading to lawsuits and regulatory delays. Okay, so the listing in the Orange Book is important for brand name drug manufacturers as it provides a legal mechanism to protect their patent from infringement by generic drug manufacturer. The Orange Book helps to promote innovation and investment in new drugs. Okay, so although after the challenge, after challenging Pfizer's patent, it did get approved eventually. So we'll see how it got approved. Okay, this is your Hatch-Waxman Act. Okay, so see from here you can see the patent expired in January 2010. Okay, and okay, so yeah, so the brand name drug patent expired in 2010 and composition patent expired in 2025. Okay, and paragraph 4 was filed in January 2023, challenging challenging Pfizer that your patent has expired. So within filing of litigation, in 45 days, sorry. Okay, coming back to January 2023, a generic files a ANDA with paragraph 4 certification. So Ranbaxy filed an ANDA under paragraph 4 certification challenging Pfizer's patents. Okay, so this patent was challenge was presented in front of Pfizer within 20 days of generics filing the ANDA. And once the notice was sent to the NDA holder, or in this case Pfizer, a litigation was filed, and within 45 days, a 30-month hold was implemented on Ranbaxy because the patent hasn't expired yet. Okay, so in Feb, see, calculate what timeline it is. 30 months from February, when when 30 months stay started, and once the 30-month stay ended, ANDA approval, Ranbaxy got its approval in August 2025, along with 180-day exclusivity, which lasted till February 2026. So, point being, the approval was granted, but also 30-month stay was implemented and litigation were filed. So, since the patent wasn't expired, Ranbaxy had to go through litigation. They had to go through 30-month stay period, and post that only the generic approval was granted to the company. Okay, along with the first generic market exclusivity. So yes, that is how the patent and exclusivity works. Moving on to the Hatch-Waxman Act and ANDA process. Okay, so when we talk about Hatch-Waxman Act, Hatch-Waxman Act created the ANDA pathway, balancing both innovation and the process. It was also previously known as Drug Price Competition and Patent Term Restoration Act of 1984, and it facilitates generic competition by creating ANDA pathway and rewards innovation while ensuring affordable generics. There are few key provisions to the Hatch-Waxman Act. First one is your patent term restoration, which compensates innovators for time lost during FDA review up to 5 years. Then the ANDA pathway, which allows generics to rely on safety and efficacy data of the innovator drug. Then there's patent certification requirement where ANDA applicants must address patents listed in the FDA Orange Book. And lastly, the 180-day exclusivity period, which is incentive for the first generics to challenge a patent via paragraph 4 certification. Okay. So let's understand the process. So the generic manufacturers submit an ANDA to the FDA demonstrating that their drug is bioequivalent to the reference listed drug. Then the paragraph 4 certification is filed challenging the patents of the brand name drug, which can lead to a 13-month stay preventing FDA approval. Brand name drug companies often sue generic manufacturers for patent infringement, triggering a legal battle. And once the legal battle is won, the first generic applicant may receive a 180-day exclusivity, delaying other generic launches. So, the Hatch-Waxman Act balances incentives for innovation with increased access to affordable medication. This act expedites the generic drug approval process while protecting the patent rights. Okay, so what happened when the Ranbaxy got its 180-day exclusivity? So once Ranbaxy was granted exclusivity as the first generic applicant with paragraph 4 certification, and there was delayed launch due to regulatory issues affecting Ranbaxy, and other generics approved after exclusivity increased the competition for the Ranbaxy. So Ranbaxy's 180-day exclusivity marked a critical phase in the generic atorvastatin journey, as this exclusivity period significantly impacted the market entry timing of other generic manufacturers. However, the delayed launch of Ranbaxy's generic version prolonged market dominance by Pfizer. The 30 months delay that they received only enhanced the Pfizer's market dominance during those 30 months, right? So market impact post generic launch was 3.2 million, 2 billion for Lipitor's annual US sales before generic entry. And after the generic entry happened, 80% price drop was seen within a year due to competition. So the introduction of generic atorvastatin led to a dramatic decrease in price, enhancing patient accessibilities to this essential medication. The savings realized by the patients and healthcare system were substantial, reflecting the economic benefits of generic drug availability. Now comes the role of settlements and agreements. When there is a legal battle, there are also legal settlements. Okay, so brand name companies and generic manufacturers may settle patent disputes to avoid prolonged litigation because it costs a lot of money, and both the parties think that it's better to save money than get into a legal litigation. So yes, they both settle patent disputes to provide prolonged litigation. Settlements can delay generic entry in exchange for undisclosed terms that it differs from companies to companies. Complex dynamics. These agreements influence market competition and the drug pricing. So settlements between pharmaceutical companies often play a significant role in shaping the generic drug market. These agreements can impact the timing of generic drug launches and overall market competition. Understanding these dynamics is essential for pharmacy professionals and policymakers. So, these are the key takeaways. The patent challenges significantly impacting generic drug approval timelines, the regulatory exclusivities, shaping market dynamics and the competition, then market dynamics leading to price reduction and increased patient access. So the case of generic atorvastatin highlights the critical role of patent challenges, the exclusivities, the market dynamics in generic drug approvals. The Ranbaxy settlements and exclusivity delay underscore the complexities of the ANDA processes, demonstrating the success of Hatch-Waxman Act in promoting pharmaceutical competition and affordable healthcare. Right? Just go through this slide once. I'll give you 5 minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to write them down in the chat box and we can discuss them. So, okay, here is it. Just give it a read for 5 minutes, and then if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat box. Just go through everything once. If you have any doubt, please note them down, and I hope we can discuss it eventually. There is a detailed explanation on Hatch-Waxman Act and patent certification paragraph 4. You'll understand how it relates to FDA's ANDA approvals. So Just go through that once. Hello, no, the mic is not off. I've just given you a few minutes to just go through everything, and if you have any questions, you can ask them. I guess there are no questions from today's session. So let's wrap it up here, and I'll see you in the next class. Thank you so much, everyone. Even if you have questions so far from all the sessions, all the classes, you can list them down, and we can also take up those doubts in the next class, and we can have an interactive session of what you've understood so far and where you have questions. So I hope you'll have questions. Okay, I'm concluding this class. Thank you, everyone.